Welcome to the La Paz Lounge, where we're breaking mental health cycles.
Welcome to the La Paz Lounge, where it's a safe place for conversation. Welcome to the La Paz Lounge. I am your host, Lakeisha Sampson, and today we have a special guest, Miss Laranda Butler-Jason. Miss Laranda, she hosts and does a lot of things for the community, so tell the people who Miss Laranda Butler-Jason is.
Hello, my name is Laranda Jason. I am a licensed clinical social worker in the surrounding areas. I've been in the field of social work for about 15 plus years, so I do a little bit of everything. I'm a hospice social worker. I do mental health. I actually do some mental health work for La Paz. I do some contract work with the early childhood, the Head Starts. So that's who I am. So I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you. So, Miss Laranda, I know one of the things you and we have in common is childhood trauma. And some of the childhood trauma pretty much started you with your career as a social worker. Would you agree?
I agree.
So, would you mind sharing with the people some of the trauma that you may have experienced as either an adult or maybe a teenager? Pause. Didn't I say childhood trauma? Then I came back and said trauma that you experienced as a child, as an adolescent. Share with the people what led you to go into this field.
So, of course, I have experienced, most people have experienced some type of trauma in their life, whether it's a child, whether it's vicarious trauma you may have experienced just from being around certain things. So I've always wanted to be a social worker. I knew at 10 years old that I wanted to be a social worker. I specifically wanted to be a social worker in the child welfare field because I have personal experience in child welfare. And so, of course, that was always my dream. So once I graduated high school, I decided to go on to Grambling and pursue a bachelor's degree in social work. And of course, they had an opportunity to be to do an internship with child welfare, so I did that. So my first job as a social worker, even with my bachelor's, was in child welfare, and I did that for 6 years. So even as a child experiencing childhood trauma, dealing with parents who were drug addicts or had drug histories of drugs, that kind of pushed me to go into this field.
Yeah, okay. So, and of course, a lot of us can relate to childhood trauma. And I love to say this right here, especially with substance abuse. A lot of clients that we receive here, some of them may do a substance that I'm not familiar with, so it's easy to talk about something you experience. So you working in this mental health field and as licensed clinical social worker and experience some childhood trauma, and I heard you say being involved with child welfare, you have a lot to relate with your clients, would you say?
I agree.
Yes. So let me ask you something. I know you being a clinical social worker, and also I have a licensed professional clinical counselor in LPCS. Can you share insights or the different roles of a LCSW compared to LPCS?
So the social work field and the LPCs are pretty similar. The main difference between LCSWs and LPCs is that LCSWs, the licensed clinical social worker, social work in general is a more broader field. So unlike LPCs that mostly focus on the counseling aspect, we focus on the whole person, their environment. So that's why as a LCSW or a social worker, you can work fields as in case management, advocacy. So it's much broader than just the psychology counseling aspect.
Okay. So let's piggyback on your childhood. Would you say the effect of substance abuse with your parenting did that interfere with your mental state?
I would definitely say that it did. It did have an effect. I tell people that all the time, even a lot of the clients that I deal with day to day, you know, growing up with parents that abuse substances, it does affect you in some way, whether it's as a child or even as an adult. I can remember as a child being diagnosed with ADHD.
Wow.
And a lot of that might have stemmed from just different things going around. Of course, I'm the oldest child of 6, so that plays a role as well.
So when you say played a role, that you feel that your mom, she may have experienced substance abuse, so you had to be more of you're the oldest, so you had to take on a role as a mother and a big sister.
I felt like a lot of times that I had to always look after or be that bigger example for my siblings as being the oldest child. Yes.
And just for the people, for the record, her mom sober for how many years?
She's been sober for at least 15 plus years now.
Yes, doing really good for herself. So we always want to acknowledge that even though we experience things, we're never here to belittle or anything to bash. Her mom is sober. I personally know your mom, and I love her to death. So kudos to Miss Butler. If she may see this or hear this, so proud of her. So such an impact on the community of her testimony. So thank you. But back to that, playing that role as a mother, how did that interfere with your day-to-day? You know, you said you was diagnosed with ADHD. So when we hear ADHD, I automatically think like attention deficits, can't focus, can't sit still. Was that you?
And honestly, it really was. A lot of times I sit back and I think this was probably before I was in 3rd grade. Well, it happened when I was in 3rd grade. I was diagnosed with ADHD. You know, they prescribe you the Ritalin or whatever. I took it for a while. But it's like once I got older and got to the junior high age, I just quit the medication cold turkey, and I was like a different child. I don't know what the difference was. Maybe it was maturity. I don't know. But I was a child that dealt with depression a lot, depression and anxiety. I was always worried about everything, and that followed me up into adulthood now. You know, so even
so you
now,
saying you still deal with
sometimes as a clinician. That's one thing. Even as a clinician, we are still human, and we deal with things as well. So even as a clinician, I help and work with people day to day on these things, but we still deal with stuff too. You just learn ways to cope with it, and that's what's most important.
Oh, cope. That's a word that we hear a lot. As the clinician, would you propose that you have a therapist, or seen a therapist, or okay with seeking a therapist?
I currently do not have a therapist right now, but I have been through extensive therapy myself. Even when I was fresh in college and then as an adult, I did go through extensive therapy, and it was very beneficial to me. A lot of people are hesitant about going to sit and talk to someone. I don't want to tell everyone my business or however, but it's benefits on the other side. I always say it's important to seek a professional therapist, because we have friends that we may talk to day to day, you know, but they're not a therapist. Most of the time, a therapist is going to give you unbiased feedback or opinions, and that's what we need. So
I heard you say finding that person you can talk to, a friend or whatever. My question that I did have, how do you approach building trust and rapport with clients, especially those who may feel hesitant about or resistant of seeking therapy?
So I'm one of them people, or those therapists or clinicians that meet people where they are. And so what that looks like, I don't go in, well, I'm the therapist, you know, so I meet clients where they are. Regardless of where they are, we can meet at the bottom, and that's where we're going to start. And sometimes meeting at the bottom, you just slowly build your way up, because a lot of times trust has to be built. So you meet people where they are. Be empathetic. Empathy goes a long way. And also, you have to be an active listener. A lot of times we sit and we talk to individuals, but we're not really listening to what they're saying. So you have to be be an active listener and provide them with empathy. Let them know that, you know, what they're saying is important, what they're going through is important. I'm big on validating their feelings too, and that helps to build that therapeutic relationship for me.
And let me say this, I love the fact that you said meeting them where they are. I can recall a session that I overheard. I was just in the office, and I heard you. You was doing a session, and I heard you tell a client. I think she was dealing with grief, and you said something so powerful. It's okay. It's okay to feel. You know, I think they felt it was their fault because of the grief or the loss of their loved one, and you was like reiterating, "Hey, it's okay to feel okay. It's okay not to want to talk." You okay. know, and that, would you say that's meeting them where they are?
That's meeting them where they are.
Yeah, so, you're not pressuring them. Hey, talk. You're not pressuring them.
It's no pressure. If you don't want to take, if you just want me to sit in this room with you today, just to be here, that's what I'm here for. If you want to just say 2 or 3 words, that is what I'm here for. I'm here to support you in any way that you need to be supported at that time. And then, you know, a lot of times you get clients that or maybe court ordered. Yeah. They don't want to be here. They do not want to be here. However, like I tell them, I'm here to help you. So I'm here to help you. So it's up to you. We have to do it. The court has you here. Yeah. So it's.
Let me say,
it can go as long as or short as possible.
Let me say something that's so funny. I used to do multi-systemic therapy, MST, right? And so just piggyback on when you say meet them where they are. So we would go in the sessions, me as a immature therapist. I'm just getting into the field. Now I'm talking about 10 years ago. I'm a vet now. But 10 years ago, when I'm getting into the field of MST, and I'm in there talking to my clients, you know, they probably been court ordered. Most of our clients we dealt with juveniles, you know, 13 through 17. So we'll be in there talking to the parents. So yeah. So I heard they've been having some physical aggression, or they've been having, is any verbal aggression going on, any verbal altercations and truancy, and they was looking at me like, you know, I was saying a big old word, verbal aggression and physical aggression, and the mama was like, oh my goodness, what is she a social worker? And so my consultant, we had to consult all the time, and she was telling us, I was like, well, she was just telling me they don't have no physical aggression, they don't have no verbal aggression, and I was like, well, they clearly had it because they was court ordered. She was like, are you saying physical aggression? You got to go in and say, did you have a fight? Exactly. Did you curse them out? Are you and your mama, are y'all arguing? Are you talking back to her? Meet them where they are, because a lot of the terminology that as a clinician, which I'm not licensed, but as a therapist, it's terminology that we know, but our clients don't, you know, so not saying that we're trying to intimidate them with our words or make them feel less than. Sometimes we have to use their language, right? And a lot of times when we get down to where they are, because when I would go into the homes, you know, I would make sure I'm dressed down, you know, I got on jeans, a t-shirt, or you know, just I'm still looking professional, but I'm dressed down. I'm not going in there with my briefcase, and you know, because
never thought I'd be here. Thought my ex would be sitting right there. But the Most High taught me this year to use discernment so I can see clear. Taught me not to be rushed into things.
I definitely want to touch on, do you deal with a lot of clients with substance abuse?
I do.
Okay. How does that feel?
Of course, it's different. However, I consider myself the relatable therapist. So because I have firsthand knowledge of dealing with family members and you know, people close to me with substance abuse issues or substance abuse history. So I think I kind of am drawn to the clients that have substance abuse problems.
So let me ask you a question. Can you share some insight techniques that you found most effective when you're dealing with clients with mental health and substance abuse?
I ain't gonna honestly, sometimes it is very, very difficult. one thing I've learned, because of course it's considered a dual diagnosis. You can have dual diagnosis, which is a mental health issue with the substance abuse. A lot of times we work them hand in hand, but a lot of times it's best to try to get the substance abuse problem under wraps first, because if you're using substances, how can you even focus on getting your mental health right if you constantly using these substances that kind of interfere with your mental well-being? So
do you, when you're having your sessions and you come across a client that may be in services for substance abuse, do you say, well, I can relate? Do you let them know that
sometimes self-disclosure is a good thing with some clients. Sometimes self-disclosure is not the best thing.
So elaborate on that. Why?
So when it comes to even whether it's substance abuse or mental health, self-disclosure, it has to be to a certain degree. Because a lot of times, yes, I may be very relatable, but sometimes everyone cannot accept everything about you.
That's
right.
Well,
you have issues like this, so how can you help me? So sometimes it's not a good thing to always self-disclose so much until that rapport is built. And even then, sometimes I don't suggest self-disclosure at all.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know, because I have went into sessions, especially me that has had relatable things that my clients have experienced, that I experienced as a child, and sometimes my adults. And sometimes I may say, yeah, I know how you feel, because in my thought process, I feel like what I stated with substance abuse, you can't tell me nothing if you hadn't experienced it. So I feel like I thought that they would trust you more if you can relate to them, because just like I stated earlier, some clients may have experienced a substance abuse that I'm not familiar with. I'm not familiar with cocaine or meth or some substances, and so I have sessions on them, but I can't, I don't understand the withdrawals. All I can do is tell you, okay, this is what you need to do. Let's just watch your surroundings. Let's just, don't do this, the do's and don't. But they're looking at me like, oh, I'm just a therapist. But hey, if I was a therapist that had some same experience with that substance, they seem like they'll be more prone to accepting.
And in some instances, they may be.
So you agree?
But I agree to a certain degree.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, a lot of stuff we may never experience that they have experienced, but we're still providing them the support that they need at that time. Someone used an analogy one day. So you mean to tell me that because I don't have children, I can't give parenting advice? And that's not true. If you think about it, just because I hadn't had a baby or doesn't mean that I hadn't raised kids or anything like that.
You have parenting skills,
Exactly. Yeah. So just because I may have not physically experienced it does not mean that I cannot relate or provide feedback about that. So it's the same thing when you think about substance abuse as well. That's where I think building that rapport and just having the knowledge base, where that comes in.
Okay, yeah, well, that's good to know, because as stated, I always felt that I'm prone to gather them and gain that rapport, gain that trust, and they're more engaged when they can, which I don't go, I wouldn't go into my sessions and be, oh yeah, I was a troubled child too, me and my mom, we fought. I would say that, I experienced that with my mom, the same similarity with your daughter experienced. And so, and when they hear that, they like, so how did it work for you? How did that go when you had a child that was rebellious, or you was the rebellious child? And so they seem to be more in tune and engaged, because they can say, oh, well, she knows what she's talking about. So it goes both hand in hand, correct?
It does.
Okay. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you today for Miss Laranda for her insight as a licensed clinical social worker that has very great experience in the community. We are accepting clients here at La Paz. Feel free to give us a call at 318 224-9200 if you are someone that you know may be experiencing some mental health issues or some substance abuse. We are accepting new patients here at 910 South Vienna Street, Reston, Louisiana, suite number 7. Thank you. Welcome to the La Paz Lounge, where it's a safe place for conversation. Welcome to the La Paz Lounge, where it's a safe place for conversation.